Hello, everyone, and welcome to a podcast review on Not Now, Mom. I'm gaming. My name is Kay, and this episode is for Sea of Stars. This is part one of however many I'm going to make from this game, so I think by the end of it, I will add all the sections together to make one longer podcast episode. If you guys would be interested in longer ones and not just shorter versions. This just allows me to get more out in a more timely fashion, since they do require a lot of editing, a lot of me voicing my opinions on things and such like that. So I'd like to state that there will be spoilers in these. I have played ahead to a certain point. I have not beat this game yet, so I don't know what the end game is like at all. This is also not a walkthrough, it's more like a gameplay review, so I'm reviewing it as I play the game. I can probably expand on this a little bit more as far as the whole gameplay review goes, especially since I'm trying to 100% these games that I play. Some of them I will just not be able to, and I'm okay with that. I'll just talk about it. How much I suck at gaming, I guess. Shed a little tear for me. But anyway, this is Sea of Stars, and I hope you enjoy it. Tell me your thoughts. When you're on the title screen of Sea of Stars, you're going to immediately know what the art style is to be like. And it's honestly gorgeous, even without a whole lot to look at. I mean, we got the sea in the background that has the rippling water art I always enjoy looking at, and then a huge moon hovering just above the water, showing the craters and the kind of shading that always is impressive to look at in a pixelated style. On the lower right, we got foliage, and on the left is land with a lit campfire. It's also satisfying to look at, since it also has subtle movement going on. It's not a still image. Listen to me. It's only a title screen. I'm fangirling. After the title screen, you have the option of choosing which characters you want to play as, Valir or Zale. Though whoever you choose doesn't change anything regarding the game, it's basically just asking if you'd like to play as a male or female character, and if you decide you want to change who you play as, you can do so at some point in the game. It's a little different than simply asking if you'd like to be a male or female, since Valir is played as a monk and Zale a ballet dancer, but again, either way you play both characters as their respective class in battles no matter who you take control of. When you hover over either character, you can see their hunched battle movement, which is a fun glimpse of what's to come. The actual start of the game drops you into the Great Archives, where an immortal is speaking to you from a chair with his back to us, and though at times he will look around the back of his chair at us, which is kind of funny. We do get to see his face this way, but the icon from which he speaks from only gives you a glimpse of a bandaged arm and tattered shirt. It's also interesting that while we'll be playing as multiple characters throughout the game, the Archivist is referring to us as one person. Is this breaking the fourth wall, calling us out as the gamer, or are we actually someone that's part of the game itself? He says he's versed in the ways of alchemy, and that maybe we know that, so I'm not entirely sure that it's fourth wall breaking, but it still could be. And even though he's versed in alchemy, this room doesn't reveal that sort of knowledge from him, since we see nothing but books upon books upon books with no organizational skills. He's definitely not OCD, but he's also a very interesting character that we only get a glimpse of here. Honestly, he reminds me of one of the Dragonlance Dungeons & Dragons gods that writes everything as it happens. Was Astinus his name? Astinus? I read it when I was younger, so it's been a very long time, but I remember him being mentioned during maybe Raceland and Cameron's journeys with Tasselhoff and the others. Talk about a throwback. No matter who we are to him, he does mention a certain special story that deserves to have an observer, which is obviously the story we're going to be playing into. Which means it's already been written, but he also states that the mist of time might permit a slight alteration. So he's able to rewrite history then. Definitely a powerful immortal that you don't want to fuck with. This is also where the Fleshmancer is first mentioned in red lettering, so they're obviously going to be a bad guy. And I'm wondering if they control zombies or if they look like Patchwork from World of Warcraft, because either is viable with that kind of title. The Archivist sets up the story we're about to play as something that happened generations prior and is still affecting the world to this day thanks to whatever the Fleshmancer had done. We'll be revisiting the timeline of two children of the Solstice on Evermist Island, whom are Zale and Valir, and they're about to make their journey to an immortal spirit that will teach them to use magic without using magic so they can become Solstice warriors. And now the gameplay actually begins on the mountain trail. I love the fact that the characters' faces change in lieu of what it is they're saying. When they talk normally, they've got one set of facial expressions, and when they're mimicking someone, their faces become a bit more poised, as if they're standing at attention and reciting a serious line. Really shows how much effort the art team put into the game just to change facial expressions like this. Our first initiation into combat is a quiet one, meaning there's no tutorials on what to do, even though the game does offer certain methods to make combat easier. Instead, the knowledge we can obtain here is that there's a countdown number over the enemy's head, and once it reaches 0, they'll attack. As far as attacking goes, it's the only thing we can do right now. I understand why they didn't give any combat tutorials here, seeing as it's such an easy enemy that dies in a couple hits, and they maybe wanted to give us a glimpse into what a combat scenario looks like as well as an enemy type, but I don't know. I understand it, but I don't quite like it. Given that I played a little further ahead, it reminds me of games where you'll go through a combat sequence and then an hour later receive tips on how to combat. Like, where were those tips before when they were needed? Even though, again, like I said, they weren't really needed there. Our second enemy we come across is a Brugaves, and this time we're going to use a skill. So the only skill we can use is Sunball, solar magic projectile that splashes to nearby targets, meaning it's for multiple targets, but we only have one target in front of us. And what you do with this skill is you hold down the appropriate keybind. Basically, you don't want to hold it down past the most powerful point of your Sunball, because if you hold it down too long, then it lessens a little bit, which is not something that teaches you, but something that you'll learn on your own. I really enjoy traversing the terrain in this game. It's not just a straightforward path. You do have to climb ledges, knock down ladders, scoot across cliff sides. They make it a lot more interesting than just going from one path to another. Our third enemy encounter is with the enemy Bosslug. And this time, at some point, there are icons that come above the enemy's head, and it's a hammer plus a sword. And it says power 100%. There's no explanation to this, but after a hit, it typically should die. So again, it's like, it's showing us what to expect with the combat, but it's not telling us what to do with the information we're given. We go back in time to 10 years ago in the village of Mooncradle. This time there are 3 of us, including Garl. Garl mentions the Sleeper, and as he says it, stories say it's a giant serpent and it's been sleeping curled up around a mountain since even before there were traveling historians to record it. He also mentions it's super dangerous, which I don't understand that. If it's been sleeping since forever, how is it dangerous? How does anyone know it's dangerous? Is it dangerous just because it's a giant serpent? Like, what's it done to portray itself as such a dangerous creature? And the fact that Garl says it can't wake up, due to there being holes in the mountains and the wind blows through them and that plays a melody that keeps it asleep. So it's kind of like Fluffy in Harry Potter, where the harp keeps it asleep. When the harp stops, then the Fluffy wakes up. But again, if it's been sleeping since before historians recorded anything, then is there a story out there that explains why it's so dangerous? Is it kind of like a mythology thing? Like Ragnarok? Is the serpent gonna wake up and eat everything? Good God. The save points in this game are tomes of magic, so floating books, basically. And you get 3 save slots. It's interesting to note that there are animated cutscenes in this game, although I don't know how I feel about them. Like, the art is nice and everything. It's not as, how should I put it, stylistically clean and crisp as some other games. But it's not bad, definitely not bad. My thing is, when it comes to animated cutscenes in a video game, there's usually some kind of benefit to it. Such as with Tales of Zestiria, those cutscenes are pretty long and drawn out and introduce certain aspects, as well as the cutscenes in like Ni no Kuni games. They have a larger impact than the animation scenes of this game. In this one, you just got 2 characters that the kids know, and they're walking, and then they see us. And that's it. It's just acknowledgement. And I don't really think that you need an animated scene for that. But like I said, animated scenes are nice, but it's just, is it that important to have it in the game? That's my question. I'm not sure how I feel about Erlina's icon because it looks like she's just fed up with shit. Like she don't want to deal with this. She don't want to be here. And I think it's not the front profile, it's her eyes. The fact that her eyes are like kind of up, like she's just looking upward while someone's talking to her. Like people do when they just don't want to listen to you anymore. It's like, Erlina, show me how you really feel. I like both Erlina and Brugaves though. The headmaster is apparently going to be a dick, as all headmasters are. Well, I guess Dumbledore wasn't a dick, was he? He was the headmaster, right? I apologize to him. But most other headmasters are dicks, and Moraine is no exception. We end up going into the Forbidden Cavern, where Valere needs to open up the door to it. It's affected more by the full moon, so I assume she's the only one that's able to open it due to her being closer to the moon goddess. I believe it's the moon goddess. And of course, as kids, we go into the Forbidden Cavern and encounter monsters, in which Garl saves us from an attack but loses an eye in the process. Of course, Headmaster Moraine comes to the rescue, and he's so cold. In regards to Garl's injury, he goes, "Be thankful that the only cost of this lesson was an eye, young lad." Like, be a little more caring. The child just lost their eye. Good lord, I don't even like kids, and I feel sorry for Garl. Since we pulled that stunt, we are taken to Zenith Academy, like we were hoping for. When the headmaster takes them to the highest point, he says they have no idea how much potential they have, which is, foreshadowing. We're gonna save everyone from the bad person because of our potential. Also, is it just me, or would you totally Sparta kick him right off this edge? Brugaves is the first one to see to our training at first. So we're running laps, we're climbing ladders, doing push-ups, and sit-ups. I think this would have been a good moment to make little games out of this training, instead of making these little scenes where the characters are doing it themselves. I think that was a missed opportunity there. Another missed opportunity is making a magic piece of fabric worthy of the very stars. So they're basically weaving cloth. I think they could have made a little mini game out of that as well. They could have just let us lend a hand in the making of such an important piece of the game, Eventually, after years of training, Brugaves is finally teaching us the combat tutorial. So during combat, you can use the left and right directional pads to cycle through available characters. Party members can use their turn in the order of your choice, but they can only act once per round, which is actually pretty nice, because if you don't want to attack with one person just yet, you can use another person to attack first. Now with proper timing, you can increase the damage that you deal and sometimes even score additional hits. So if you time your attack just right, you can increase the damage, or even get an additional hit in. You can also block attacks from enemies. So with proper timing, you can reduce the damage of any incoming attack or spell by blocking. This is a bit more difficult to do than just attacking an enemy, because you have to get a feel for the enemy's attack sequence, like how fast they are, how slow they are, when the appropriate time to block is there. If you're having troubles in the combat tutorial with blocking at the right moment, Brugaves will tell you pretty much the exact moment where you'll want to block to lessen the damage. He also teaches you about having a character knocked out. KO'd allies will get back up on their own at 50% HP once all the KO stars are gone. So you do not need a Phoenix down in this game. You just gotta wait it out and the character will get back up. Another aspect of the combat that I really like. So you don't have to use up your items in order to keep bringing someone back. You just kind of gotta be more defensive about the situation. Erlina is the one to teach you about magic damage. So Valere can do blunt damage and Zale has slicing. And with the icons I mentioned before in one of the beginning combat scenes, Erlina has 2 swords and 2 hammers. So you hit her with a sword twice and hammers twice before she's available to attack in order to lessen her power. This goes the same for magic symbols above enemies, Zale for sun damage and Valere for moon damage. So if there's a sun, then use Zale, and if there's a crescent moon, use Valir. We already know about Zale's Sunball, so Valir has Moonerang. Moonerang is actually pretty fun. Once you throw it, you can press A to deflect it over and over and over again, and it gets faster with each deflect. By using magic, our MP decreases, and in order to increase our magic points, basically, we just have to attack the enemy regularly. And by attacking them regularly, our MP goes up. Another thing Erlina teaches us is the combo. So our combo is Solstice Strike. And combos are lost after each battle, so you'll want to use them, because there's really no point in not using them, honestly. To complete our last test, we have to jump down the hole all the way at the top of the sky of the tallest structure. See, after training all these years to get this far, if I was told to jump down from this height, I'd be like, fuck you. I'm out. I'm no longer a warrior. Get out of here. You jump down that hole. After we plunge into the water, this is our first room where we'll be doing puzzles. So by turning the lever, we get to jump on the other side of the room, which will grant us a ornate stone. We put these ornate stones into their pedestals, and the way opens, with enemies to attack. By the way, this time your health does not increase as soon as the battle is over, so keep in mind that just because the beginning area showed you it would doesn't mean that's always the case. In our second combat scene of this training area, I got the achievement Bouncy. Bounce a Moonerang 25 times in a row. It's so fun, guys. It's so fun. Our final opponent is called Word, and when we engage with him, our HP does come back to us as well as our MP. He has a shuffle weakness he does, so for physical, you'll want to attack him with physical attacks, obviously. And for his shuffle weakness of magic, it's typically a type of magic, so sun, you'll want to use a sun move on him, and for moon, you'll want to use moon magic. He won't take too long to destroy. Your level up screen is pretty cool. You have choices on what you want to upgrade, and these choices change up from time to time, so it's not always the same, I don't think. So for Zale, I got +2 physical attack, +1 mana points, +2 magic attack, and +3 physical defense. At the bottom, it shows what your stats will increase to due to the level up, and then the additional increase of what you're hovering over. So I think that's nifty. After that, we're done with our training. Now we just have to go to the Elder Mist to learn how to use magic without using magic. Before we leave to go on our adventure, we get an Amulet of Storytelling and a Sequent Flare. These are relics that you're able to turn on and off, I think, in the menu. So what relics do is they offer you more of a challenge or less of a challenge, depending on what you're looking for in the game. So instead of on the main menu, you have like difficulty ratings that you want to choose from. Instead, you choose from different relics. The relics we currently have are Amulet of Storytelling, max HP plus 100% and auto heal after combat. Sequent Flare, successfully timing hits and blocks causes a star flare to fly out of the character for a clear as day confirmation that the input was properly timed. Recommended for those preferring stronger feedback or while closing in on the mastery of certain moves. Tactician's Medal. Enemies have 60% damage resistance while casting Lochs. Increases player damage taken by 35%. Items, snacks, cannot be used in combat. Campfires recover HP up to 50% and don't recover MP. So you got 3 different ones to choose from at the start if you want to do anything, especially with trying to time your blocks and everything correctly. The Sequent Flare would help a lot with that. There's actually one point in the Forbidden Cavern where I kind of felt lost. I didn't know what to do. And that's because when you come out of an area, there is a gap in the floor between one side and the other. And there's a ledge that you can shuffle across, but it's really hard to notice the ledge there. And so I thought that like I couldn't get across it just yet. I had to raise something in order to move across it. So it took me a while to realize that there's a ledge right there I can just walk across. They didn't make that very noticeable. It's in the Forbidden Cavern that Zale and Valir will learn the combo skill Mending Light, which I believe is the ability to heal everyone. Instead of 1 combo point, it will need 2 combo points though. So you'll have to wait a bit to get it, but it's pretty worth it. Bosslug is your first boss. Main boss. The tutorial boss does not count, by the way. This boss is susceptible to both sun and moon magic. So whenever you have enough MP, it's good to use one of those. Its attacks are spinning on you, sometimes once, sometimes several times. It will also thrash around, causing rocks to fall. Again, a multiple hit move. And then it can also call companions. These companions have pretty low health, but if you use Valir's Crescent Arc, you can, for the most part, hit the boss and them, depending on their positioning overall. You might have a bit of trouble with your health if you can't nail the blocks in time, since he does a lot of combo moves. But keep in mind that you can go into your items menu and heal from there if you don't have enough MP to heal yourself with Zale. I was super low in health at the end of this boss, and I thought about using the mushroom soup, I think it's called, for both party members to heal. I was like, I don't really want to use it because I thought he was pretty low in health, even though there's not a health bar on him. And since he had 2 more turns before he could make a move, I decided to go ahead and hit him once and then use a sunball, and thankfully that destroyed him, so I didn't die. I came close to it, but I didn't die. After defeating it, you get the achievement Boss Slugged. Defeat Forbidden Cavern's boss. Eventually we get a scene with 4 villains, I assume. Like literally 1, 2, 3, and 4. Their names are in red, so I assume they are bad guys. Plus they look like bad guys. Speaking of looks, 4 reminds me in the face of Anfermon from Digimon. It's like as soon as I saw their face, I was like, why does that look like a Digimon to me? And I had to look it up because I remembered the Digimon and what it looked like. Season 3, but I can't remember its name. It's Anfermon, ultimate form of Crystallimon. Otherwise, these guys look pretty badass, and each have their own weapon types too. Okay, we're in the open world now, and I know right now it's not much to look at. There's a lot of mountains, rocky surfaces. It's not that pretty overall, but this reminds me of going out into the open world of Chrono Cross when you went to different sections of the map. I'm sure there's a few other games that I played that have this kind of thing going on, but Chrono Cross definitely comes to mind. There is fishing in this game, you guys. If you go to Sunglow Lake and look at the board, it will show you 2 outlines of the different fish that you can get here. Both types give you the same thing, fillet. I thought maybe there'd be something interesting if you like caught all the fish, but there's not. You just catch all the fish. Hey, either way, that's a lot of fillet for what I assume is going to be cooking. The whole fishing aspect is pretty easy. You just gotta keep the fish within the row of light as it struggles to get away from you. And even though the bobber can land in one place, you can also move it around left and right and tug it forward. So it's not like stationary and, oh, you can't catch a fish, so you gotta cast your reel again. I think I'm a little bit disappointed with the fact that the 2 different fish that you can get don't offer 2 different things. That's my only beef. But overall, I'm satisfied with the fishing game. While we're sitting at the campfire talking about Garl and thinking of the celestial willow jam bread, he pops out of the bushes. And just like that, Garl, the warrior cook, joins the party. Which means this is where we learn to cook. So despite having fillets on us, we gotta grab the berries from the bushes, approach the campfire, and cook us some berry jam. And that's really all you gotta do. Just choose what you want to cook and then hold down the button and cook it. Continuing forward, there is a chest with the gold ring Abacus inside it. Basically, it displays non-boss enemies' HP and combat. So you no longer have to wonder how close to death enemies are. Now, there is an achievement for acquiring all chests, but I don't know if I'll be pointing out every single location of a chest that I see in this commentary review. I will be pointing out some of the more important ones, like with the rings and such. Anyways, this area will really give you a feel for how you'll be traversing throughout the game. You're climbing stuff, jumping over things. Obviously in the future there's going to be a lot more. There's a grapple hook. You can use a wind power, solstice. So there's a lot of things to do with the environment as far as getting around. In a foggy area, you can jump down and open a chest for recipe Chaudree, which is the food you can make. And I think there's also an achievement for creating all the recipes at least once. There is a cave entrance with pedestals of fire lit with orange and blue. You can't do anything with this just now, so I assume there's going to be backtracking. I really hate backtracking in video games, mainly because I forget where to go in the future of where I haven't been. But obviously this is going to deal with the solstice, probably. The Elder Mist is pretty freaking cool looking. He's just a puffy cloud with a mustache and a face. The Elder Mist will take you to the Elder Mist trials, where you'll go through 3 different trials and acquire the relics in each of them. Simply attacking enemies will not do any damage to these guys. Instead, when you attack them, they will drop little spheres of magic, in which you can absorb those magical elements in order to use magic without using magic, because you're also not allowed to use magic in this area. So when you absorb that magic into Valir or Zale, their weapons will be imbued with their magical element, which they'll then strike the enemy with that magical element, as well as whatever their attack type is, hammer or sword. As far as Garl goes, if you absorb the magic with him, his attack power will just increase, since he doesn't have an innate ability of magic using. These trials are fun little puzzle layouts. I did the one on the left first. You basically pull a lever to move a platform around, and you'll have to maneuver things so you can get around properly, like drop a ladder in order to use the platform up top. Once you acquire the relic at the end of each of these trials, you'll automatically be teleported back to the main entrance of where the relic steps are. The middle one has questions on the boards that you'll have to answer correctly in order to move forward. However, if you don't answer one correctly, then you'll just have to fight enemies. And once those enemies are defeated, then you can progress forward. So you don't have to answer the question after you get it wrong once. You just move on. It's in the middle trial that you can open a chest for the recipe Mushroom Scramble. Something about the final question really got me. I don't know why I got this wrong. I knew what the answer was. But both Eclipse and Solstice were throwing me off. I knew it wasn't Equinox. One very important Solstice warrior duty is to destroy dwellers who become vulnerable during which natural phenomenon. And I guess just because we're Solstice warriors, I was thinking it had to be on a solstice, but it's not. It's Eclipse. So like I stated before, you just have to destroy some enemies and then the path before you will open up. You'll have to do a bunch of climbing all over again though, since it does teleport you to the start of the area. The trial on the right side is probably the easiest one to do. Once you've acquired all the relics, you're going to have a boss battle with the Elder Mist using those relics. And the use of spells is not allowed, so you don't have to worry too much about that. The Elder Mist can kind of trip you up here because when he has symbols over his face, you obviously kind of like want to go ahead and attack him with those different symbols to decrease his power, but you'll want to get rid of the lance first. If you hit him in the face when the lance is alive, he's going to counterattack. So you'll want to destroy the lance and then hit his face. Eventually the lance will rebuild itself though, so be mindful of that. Aside from his counterattack, his 2 main abilities are smashing you with his fist, as well as healing himself. So the really hurtful one is the lance. And these enemies, they will show when they're lower in health they'll have like a weakened animation to them. Something that's off from their original animation, which is a plus. You might not be able to see their health bar, but you'll know when you've got them on the lower end of health. He's a pretty simplistic boss. I don't think he tried very hard though. Once we're back at the pond, he teaches us how to manipulate time. So if we stand on one of the runes, we can advance time and rewind it. This will be beneficial in doing some little areas, secretive things, mainly charging up runes. So to understand it the first time, all you gotta do is manipulate time until it's dark and the crystal is beaming its light onto the larger fragment. And once they are all lit up, the path will be revealed. Some of these in the future will be timed, others, like this one, are not. I doubled back here to go into the cave again to see if I could possibly do something. Now that I could manipulate time, but no, you still cannot do anything with that cave. Evermist Island's landing is where you will receive your prophecies, all 3 of you. For Zale, it is, in order to reach your full potential, you will first need to stare at the night inside of you. For Valir, it is, when the time comes, you'll be the one to creep paths on water. For Garl, it's, the mists are unclear in your case, but it appears your heart might be warm enough to soothe a long-tormented soul. And this is the part where you'll get chucked to Sleeper Island with the achievement. No, wait. What's interesting is during these little sequences of questing and going to certain areas, we'll dip back into the Great Archives, where the Archivist will kind of lay down some information of what's about to happen. It's kind of like he's telling us the story as we are playing it, without actually telling us the story, since we actually get to play it out. But it always comes back to these clips of the Archivist to remind us that this story has come to pass, and it is being told to us. In this next area, if we go downward and into a cave, there is a chest with Solstice Mage Ring. What this does is party members recover 1 MP when they time a block. This is about the time where you'll notice that there's a lot of ingredients around the land that you'll be acquiring in order to make some meals. I don't think I really made a whole bunch of meals throughout my gameplay. I mean, you can only make 10 of them at once. So once you've hit 10, you can't do anything. You gotta use one to make space, which is kind of a shame. It makes you really think about which ones that you want to cook that'll be more beneficial to you. They're definitely lifesavers for certain points though, so it's definitely worth it to cook what you can and cook what you need. When we leave this place and enter the next area, we do have a little scene with a person that we have not met with. They don't say anything, they just create a portal and step through it. They look like an assassin though, so that'll be interesting. Can you imagine how good of a power that would be? Just like make a portal to literally anywhere? I wonder if she has limits. That's my question. Maybe she can only create portals to places she's already been to? That'd make a bit more sense. I don't know if I've talked about it yet. I need to go through some of this stuff. It's been a while since the first portion that I've spoken about, but there are some areas where there's a cracked ground, and if you get in a high enough area and jump down onto it, it will break through, leading to an area you could not have gone to otherwise. In this area, if you jump down into a hole, there is a chest for a recipe mushroom soup. I'm not going to tell you guys where these areas are. It's hard enough doing this, because this isn't a walkthrough. It's just a review of mine, a 100% review, if I can get 100%. I will probably have guides and walkthroughs on my other channel to help you out with the different areas. But as far as this podcast, no, it's definitely not a walkthrough. It's just I'm pointing things out that you'll have to find. And I've already missed pointing out several chests, but they either had equipment or things to sell in them. There's also conch shells that you can get with certain chests, but again, I haven't really mentioned those, even though they are important. They are very important for an achievement. I think for multiple achievements, actually. We meet another new person in this area, and actually this time we meet them, and we get an animation clip of her studying what looks like some runes. And I just now realized the animation reminds me of the animations in Deponia, the Deponia series. If anyone's played that, it's super funny games. Point and click games. I highly recommend playing them for a laugh. So this girl's name is Teaks, and she is a traveling historian. Basically, she has a lore grimoire, and as we acquire artifacts, not relics, artifacts, we can go to her and her grimoire can absorb the information from it, and then she can tell us stories. Again, listening to all the stories is an achievement in this game. The first story she has is called The Vespertine. Of all the recorded hexes and acts of bewitchment, few are as dreadful as the curse of the Vespertine. This story takes us back centuries, to a time when a certain band of pirates ruled the seas. Stormcaller was the name of their captain. He was the most powerful wind mage the world had ever known. And their navigator, Hortense, remains to this day the shrewdest mariner on record. Combining Hortense's skill and Stormcaller's magic, some say their ship was faster than light itself. The crew went on many adventures and accumulated countless riches until one day the inevitable happened. Hortense, whose first love was music, announced that she wanted to quit the pirate life and devote herself to her art full time. Ever a firm believer that the real treasure is the treasure one finds along the way, Stormcaller took her resignation harshly. Utterly insulted, he stopped conjuring wind for the sails and locked the ship right in the middle of the ocean. "And we shall remain here," he said, "till our navigator gets that silly idea out of her head." But Hortense had already made her final decision. Days went by, both of them sulking while their crew begged that they reach some resolution. First they ran out of patience, then out of food, and eventually out of drinkable water. Then one day after sunset, the pirates, driven mad by hunger and thirst, mutinied and made their captain walk the plank. And as he sank into the abyss, Stormcaller cursed his crew and conjured an eternal prison. In the sea of nightmare, he would channel a deadly storm for them to endure forevermore. Over centuries, the crew members lost their minds to the ghastly place, until only Hortense remained. To this day, the battle goes on in the Sea of Nightmare, Stormcaller's hatred pitted against the navigator's sheer will. Some say Stormcaller's fury will one day sink the ship, while others believe he will eventually bow to the indomitable Hortense. Legend has it she gets a short break once a day, for but a few seconds, at the precise time the curse was first conjured. Countless sailors and fishermen have since reported sightings of the legendary ghost pirate ship that appears at dusk. They call it the Vespertine. While some have half a mind to climb aboard in search of treasure, most avoid sailing at dusk for fear of being sucked into the Sea of Nightmare. The end. So they're cool little stories, and they go along with what's gonna happen during your adventures at some point. The Windy Loch is another fishing place you can go into. The fish you can catch in this one are grass haddock, hard shell, and lunar trout. All these fish give fillets. I think that's all any fish gives, as far as my playthroughs so far in this game. I kind of wish certain ones would give you different materials, but they're fish, so. There is a crystal coming up where you'll want to light both the lunar panels as well as the solar one. And once you get it right, Zale and Garl will both learn the combo skill Solar Rain. This is a 2 combo point cost, sun damage that hits all enemies. The next area we enter is Stonemasons Outpost, where all the mole people are freaking out because the Elder has not returned, and Malkomud is apparently going to kill them all. Apparently, the wind tunnels are being clogged, and they are the only things that is keeping the sleeper asleep. If the wind tunnels are being clogged, though, it makes you wonder how long the melody can remain stopped before the sleeper actually wakes up. But since this place has a windmill that is powering the elevator, we need to actually get that windmill started moving. This is a case of arriving in the nick of time. I like this place because you see a lot of the windmills around. They got like green glass to them, and there's not actually any houses because these are mole people and they've built them into the rocks. So it's a bunch of rocky surfaces, see a bunch of mining equipment, gems, gemstones. It's a lot different than your typical town layout. When we jump down the hole at the top, we find Molekin Elder at the bottom. And he was never trying to help his people to begin with. Instead, he was simply trying to get away from the noise of all this panic when everyone started cheering as if I was going in to fix the problem. So basically, he was being a coward, and everybody misinterpreted it. As you progress through these different areas of this mine, you'll notice a monster named Bush True that is sort of stuck on the wall that you'll have to defeat as like a normal enemy among other enemies. Once you get rid of them, you can hop into the tunnel that they've disappeared from, which will activate the windmills. So once you activate the first windmill, the power will come back on, and the Molekin Elder will be able to leave the mines via the elevator. Since you can't do anything else on this floor, you'll have to jump down the hole. There's a chest you'll be opening up for Mistral Bracelet. You do not need to equip this. This is automatic for you. But you can press X to release bursts of wind that can push blocks. So you can now kind of do slide puzzles when it comes to the blocks. They do have a set path that you can move them, though some of them have a wider area to move, so that's why they're kind of slide puzzles. Not all of them, but some of them. When you move the first one, you'll encounter a mini-boss by the name of Salamander. Salamander's main abilities are stomping on you, as well as swelling you up and spitting you out at one of your companions. Luckily, they don't have too much health though. Didn't take too long to get them down. You don't actually defeat them, they do end up running off. Once you defeat the second Bush True and activate the windmill, something like a green propeller will reveal itself. So now we not only use the wind to move pedestals, but also to propel things. And of course, not every movable object is going to be like this big, huge green gemstone on a pedestal. But there's something to look out for when there are paths set in the ground. Usually that means something is going to be moving via the wind. I haven't seen too many of the propeller type objects through my gameplay so far. Pretty sure they are out there though, but I don't see why they would just use them for this area and then just leave it alone. I will say though, I am quite happy that these paths are pretty simplistic, even though there are some larger areas. They're nothing like fucking Temtem, was it? I think there's an ice area in that game, if I'm remembering the game right, where you gotta slide. I don't think it's a slide puzzle, but you have to slide yourself to different areas to try and get to one specific area. That's so annoying because you have to get the path just right. But in this game, Sea of Stars, it's not quite that stressful. Something about going through this hall where it's like made of green glass is so cool to me. It's simple in nature, but it's like, it reminds me of Ice Age when they're going through the frozen underground where you see different things behind the frozen walls and stuff. It kind of distorts us as we're running along the path. It's just a little thing. It's the little details I enjoy. Eliminating the third Bush True will activate the third windmill and another pinwheel to use your air on. On the base floor again is probably where you'll find your first most complex of these slide puzzle things, since you have 2 crystals to move this time instead of just one along a path. But again, it's pretty simplistic in nature. You gotta move one of these petals to the slot on the floor to the right, which lowers the wall that's currently blocking the rest of the path. And once that wall is done, you've already set the other block up to move forward to the next appropriate space in the next room. And this area, it requires a bit more thought to it, but again, it's not that difficult. I had more trouble with the first section because I was being a complete idiot about it. No, really, this is how I work through my puzzles. I have a truly terrifying, non-existent thought process. After opening a door, you'll meet Malkomud and his pet, Rocky. Apparently, Malkomud is not actually an enemy. He's just kind of shunned for his powers that nobody taught him how to use. Honestly, I can't really tell if Malkomud is on the spectrum or not, or if he's just a kid and he doesn't really know any better. Because he wants to play with his powers, but no one is strong enough, I guess, to match him or to play with him. So I'm going to assume they get hurt because of it and he gets mad. So he came down here and built a fort for himself with his pet. I don't know, I can just see him as being someone on the spectrum. Also, he's kind of just got the mentality of a kid in general, plus looks like a kid, which a lot of these mole people kind of look like kids a little bit. So I guess it could go either way. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. In the first phase of the fight, there is both Malkomud and Rocky to contend with. Rocky has basically the same moveset, so the different one is Malkomud here. His abilities are Shovel Might, where he will jump on your head 3 different times. He'll also summon a stalactite from the wall and fire it at someone. When Malkomud is at low enough health, he will jump on top of Rocky to create a whole new enemy for you, called Malkomount. Their abilities are Geobreaths, where Rocky exhales geodes at you, and a normal attack where he will swipe his shovel at all party members. Once you defeat him in combat, you feel a little bit bad for him because, he says people berated him because he was also strong, and he finds digging too boring, and he's not as good as it as other people are just because it is boring, I guess. And they end up making fun of him for it. It's just a little sad side story, Malkomud is different from everyone else, and they just don't get it. But in the end, Malkomud says he will help out with his magic if something big needs it. Otherwise, he's just gonna stay down here in his fort, which is just fine. Don't worry about it. Next, we have a scene with 1, 2, 3, and 4 again, talking about preparations in the eclipse and making sure everything goes smoothly. So, obscure evil people plans, that kind of thing. Once you're in the town again, in the artist's home, you will find a conch shell in a chest. In someone else's home, you will find ancient Molekin cloak in a chest. And this is something you can give to Teaks for another story. This story is called The Great Summoning. What few people know today is that Kunisnuku had already been banished by the time the Great Summoning happened. The channeling had begun months prior, back when the lizard folk still had the upper hand. It was toward the end of the decades-long battle after it became clear that the Molekin mages would be the victors. On this night of nights, the air carried early cries of victory across the archipelago. Suddenly, the very sky tore open, and a giant sky serpent emerged to wreak havoc. To this day, historians argue about the origins of the sky serpent. Some say it is a monster of pure evil, stolen from another plane of existence and forced to remain here. Others believe it came from above the clouds, a once-friendly creature that had its mind corrupted by dark magic. But regardless of its origins, the sky serpent was set to change the world forever. Back in the time of the Ovates, the ritual of the elements could have been performed to control the sky serpent's mind. But alas, the Ovates were long gone. Earth magic being their only strength at hand, the Molekin elementalists devised a plan to contain the threat. By carving intricate wind tunnels straight into Ixtol's mountain, they turned it into a giant musical instrument. Blowing through the mountain, the wind started playing a melody so pure it forced the sky serpent into slumber. The magic was strong, and it was believed that the world would remain safe for generations. Or rather, for as long as the mountain played the melody true. For the greater good, the Molekin gave up on their study of magic and established an outpost atop the mountain. Over generations, they became expert miners, living by a pledge to keep the wind tunnels operational. The brave Molekin have toiled around the clock ever since, protecting the world one pickaxe strike at a time. Despite centuries of stability, stories say that the magic enchantment on the wind tunnels will eventually fade away. One can only hope that the Ovates will return before then. The end. There is a resident by the name of Chi that wants to take a bath, but isn't able to because the pump isn't working, and so we need to go inside a building and activate the pinwheel mechanism. In doing so, if you speak with Chi again, they'll give you a rainbow conch, meaning not every conch will be found in their specific chests. I guess this is a way to get people to actually engage in conversation with people in towns and not just head straight to the elevator to use it, since that's our main objective's path. I mean, on one hand, I get not wanting to talk to every single character, especially if you're a gamer on YouTube and say everything on screen. It can be a bit exhausting depending on the game, and most people don't have anything worthwhile to say. But for people just casually playing the game, they can skim text until they come across a character like this that'll actually give something beneficial. Makes you wonder how much crap you miss by not being social. It also reminds you that not all games have characters with an exclamation point over their head when they need something. Although those games basically are what we're used to at this point. So I'd say it's a bit unfair, especially if you're a 100%er and you're missing this one conch. But also at this point, I don't know what the end game is like, and if it'll ask you if you're sure you want to continue to the grand finale. I think it all depends on that moment. And now, as we take the lift downward, we are able to see the Sky Serpent. And oh my gosh, he's a pretty dragon. And he better not be an end boss, because I cannot imagine trying to battle that thing. I am a little bit disappointed here, because considering the stories about, the tunnels through the mountain make a melody that'll put this, huge sky dragon at her peace, so he just sleeps constantly. But as we're going down the elevator, there's no melody. I would have really liked to hear what melody it is that keeps this creature asleep. I'm a little upset that we don't get that, Okay, this is the part of the world map where you can really start to appreciate the pixel art from a bird's eye view. You got the Sky Serpent wrapped around the mountain with a snore bubble inflating and deflating as it breathes. Clouds moving around, even though this is a screenshot you're currently looking at. You got the multiple waterfalls that make up the coral cascades. There's all kinds of coral of different colors surrounding the bottom border of the island, and then a town on the right side consisting of a ton of houses seemingly stacked up as well as a shipyard. It just makes you have a moment to yourself in order to take it all in. So far, it's been a lot of green or a lot of mountains, and I'm happy regarding the change of scenery that the coral cascades will give us. Guys, you can jump down waterfalls, then use water spouts to get back up and jump down again. This was a horrible decision because there goes progression. Okay, this ends part 1 of our gameplay review of Sea of Stars. I hope you all like it so far. It's a really good game and I'm enjoying it. Maybe in future parts I'll make note of the different enemies within the regions we get into, as well as the chests that contain things in an area, even if they aren't described where exactly they're located. I had to remind myself that this is a review, so I need to look at all things and give my opinions when I have them, especially if they're connected to the whole 100% achievement ordeal. Anyway, I'm going to bed now, but as for you, just try not to get in too much trouble when you say, "Not now, Mom. I'm gaming."